If you're not familiar with this gentleman here, his name's Matt Graunke, and he's been with Parker for quite a while. Matt, I visited you back last year, last summer, towards the tail end. It was very humid in South Dakota, but I visited your kind of the new facility for Parker because you guys have just kind of been there relatively new and got to do a full tour. And Matt represents kind of everything about Parker. He travels around a lot, does a lot of speaking engagement at different conferences, and so he's going to be at the Freeze Dried Summit happening here in Boise, Idaho, where I live, at Hotel Renegade on September 22nd and 23rd. And we're doing this live stream because thankfully they are Parker is a Freeze Dried Summit sponsor and a partner sponsor, and we couldn't really do this without their support. And Matt, you're going to be speaking at the general session on Monday to kind of kick off the conference. So introduce yourself and kind of let people know, like, if they're meeting you for the first time, and then we'll kind of dive into to kind of hear what you're going to be talking about at the summit.
Perfect. Thanks, David. It's always good to see you again. I'm actually down in Beersford this week as well. Since last time you were here, we're actually putting some finishing touches on some equipment that's going to be headed out here pretty soon. So busy week around here, getting a Parker 2 system ready. Just
Hey
kind of
Matt,
wrapping up.
one
Yeah.
one second. I actually don't think we're live.
Oh, okay. It's been
We'll
recording.
It says recording, but I don't think we're actually live.
Okay.
Maybe we are. Nope. Yep. No, we are live. We are live, Matt. Sorry.
Okay, right. So yeah, I'm down here in Beersford. Like I said, always good to see you again. Really looking forward to this visit to Boise. As I mentioned earlier, I haven't been there before, and it looks like it's a wonderful hotel. Looks like it's going to be a great event, and congratulations on the sellout. I'm pretty excited to get to meet all these folks that are coming to learn a little bit more about freeze drying. A little about me. So I've been with the company for quite a while now. Here I had my 6-year anniversary in July. I work in the sales role and do a lot of speaking engagements and visit a lot of facilities, go to a lot of different conferences, trade shows, basically everything freeze dry related. Um, our company, we go into a lot of different channels. Parker Freeze Dry serves the pet space, the human consumption space. We've got biotech, we've got ag, cosmetics. There's all kinds of different industries that we're a part of, and it's just really exciting to be in this industry right now because of there's so much growth potential. There's a lot of blue sky here, which is evident by the amount of interest, like your conference has here.
Oh yeah.
We're going to have quite a few folks here that are thinking about those next steps and how does that idea I came up with at home get into that next level so that that now becomes my thing instead of just a side gig type of a deal. So it's going to be exciting.
Oh yeah. And what I'm excited about is, like, there's all different facets of people coming to this summit, which is kind of what it was designed to do. Is
Hmm.
I wanted it to be where people were starting a freeze drying business, but all and looking at doing it, and so they're more informed. But also, there's like this in between stage of a lot of people have home freeze dryers running a business, and
Hmm.
sometimes they're running like several dozen of these home freeze dryers, which it seems cost efficient to do that, but it doesn't mean that you're getting the output that a commercial unit would do for you. And that's one of the things that you're going to be talking about at the general session is, like, what does scaling your business actually look like?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know and conceptualize, like, well, I'm paying a lot of money for this machine, and you're going to talk about, well, the machine's supposed to actually make you money
Yeah.
in the business. That's what the machine is for, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And we'll be touching on a lot of different topics that kind of will cover a wide variety of different things for a lot of different channels that this could relate to. But at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to, okay, making sure you're aware of what you can be aware of so that you're setting yourself up to be in the best position. And it really comes down to just knowing, what are your true costs of things and time. What is the cost of your time and how much time are you spending, you know, dealing with things that you shouldn't be dealing with versus things that, hey, maybe I am more suited to take care of this and maybe I should offsort this, or there's a lot of different ways you can go about it. And I'm not a business plan developer by any means, but we've talked to enough folks that there's some things you got to watch out for and things you got to take into consideration as you're putting this together and getting ready for that next step. So should be a good time.
Yeah. What types of things are you seeing? I mean, it's been a year since we actually did an interview for the first time, actually meeting you. Well, I mean, it was meeting you in person.
Yeah.
But like you've seen almost 18 months since we first got introduced. And so like, are you seeing kind of this influx of people starting to kind of see whether they want to move to that full freeze drying, you know, processing type of company, or are they looking at more co-packers? Like, are the co-packing type facilities expanding a lot? How do you feel like things are moving for the freeze
all
dry?
all of all of the above. There's a little bit of everything going on. I mean, we take a lot of calls and we have a lot of discussions, and sometimes those discussions end up landing in a place where I'm not ready for my own Parker system. I'm not ready to process 1,500 pounds at a time. So who can we talk to that can help us get there? And you've covered it in a few of your calls, the option of having a co-packer that you can rely on or somebody you can trust to handle your product is certainly becoming a big thing. And we're seeing growth in that space, in the co-pack space. There's a lot of investment taking place and people trying to expand their footprint, their capacities, so that they can meet the rising demands. Um, so that's certainly a part of it. There's no real indicator on a specific channel right now that seems to be taking off because everything is just getting bigger. Everybody that's
Yeah.
working in all the different spaces. There's a lot of innovations coming down the pipe that we're seeing out there as well of new things people are trying and just different ways that they're trying to carve their market, do something unique that's going to set them apart from everybody else.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of news on your guys' side that like you guys do a lot with freeze dried pet food.
Hmm.
And it's that's no surprise, just given the boom and the growth in pet food.
Yeah.
Uh, given that you've visited a lot of different conferences over the past year in pet food, is it still projected to just keep growing like this? And
It
why would
is.
that? And why is that?
It is. The trending on it is pretty wild when it compares to the rest of the industries that are out there. And I think most of it had a lot to do with, during the pandemic when everybody was at home, a lot of people bought pets. And for whatever reason, with the humanization of the pet space, when you look at how people treat their animals, in many cases, they're far more concerned about the nutritional value and the healthiness of their food for their dog or their cat than they are for their children or themselves. And it's just kind of the nature of things. Well, now we're a couple years past into that, and it's just continuing. And the healthier the food, the longer the animals live. So that's a piece of the
Yep.
puzzle as well. All of the cagers and everything. I don't have the data right in front of me, but I mean, they're talking, 5% growth continuing to be
Oh
the
wow.
case year over year for, the next 10 years. That adds up. It's exponential growth, and you
Well,
don't get that kind of
given the
return.
industry is in the billions and they're expecting 5% growth, that's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I'll have a few slides on that, and I'm going to try and put some stuff together too on not just the pet space, but just freeze drying industry as a whole at a global scale. I mean, it's just there's a ton of growth, and I think the reason there is so much growth is just there's innovations. This isn't new technology by any means, but it's getting a place at the table where it didn't have one before. So I
Yep.
think that has a lot to do with just the sheer amount of growth that's available from an equipment standpoint.
Yeah. And the summit also, I want to, for people that are watching this and they're like, oh man, I'm not going to see, Matt and other people speak. I am planning to record at the summit as much as possible especially having good audio so that if I'm not able to capture a good video, the audio is recorded and I can upload that for you to listen. And there's going to be plenty of people that are volunteering on my side to kind of help with connecting with some Q&As and just talking to different people. So if you're watching this and you're like, I'm missing out on the summit because it's sold out, that's okay. I'm going to have some material and content after that too, Matt. So
Yeah.
that'll be good.
Yeah, and we'll have a handful of team members there on site as well. So for those of you that are on site, if there'll be plenty of opportunities for us to get together and see how we can help each other.
Yeah. Now, so Parker's they're based in South Dakota. Talk a little bit about the company as a whole for new people that are not familiar with Parker and
Yeah.
how big you guys are.
So Parker Freeze Dry has been around for a couple decades now, and they had a relationship with Proform Fabrication, which is our parent company. And at the time, Parker was a customer of Proform's. Well, as time went on, the opportunity came out for Parker to become part of the Proform team. And as that continued to grow and as freeze drying became more and more popular, it really has become the focal point. So now, in a sense, it's Parker Freeze Dry is what it is. Even though the building sign says Proform Fabrication on it. So we've got a strong team here, handful on the technician operations side. We've got a sales team that we've kind of diversified ourselves a little bit and got into specific channels, allowing us to specialize a little bit more on the channels that we're servicing. The team here, we're typically all hands on deck getting things through the process to get them out the door. And then once it's time for the sale you know, to be done and to commission the equipment, then you've got a handful of folks that you're on a first name basis with to help you continue to grow and learn your equipment and make sure you're maximizing the efficiencies of that equipment so that, like you said, it's running all the time and the machine is making the money for you.
Yeah. What's like the biggest machine you make, and then what's the
Yeah.
smallest? Like kind of, and where's the entry point for most people?
Right. So on the smaller scale, and I shouldn't say small because it's not. It's a pilot size system. So you're running at about 100 pounds of wet product per batch on under a full load. That's going to be what we call our model is the Summit, which is kind of fun with this project coming up. So um, that unit is available. It runs on single phase power. Those systems, you're probably looking at 85, 90,000 for a starting point on those. There's options depending on what you're processing. We're going to talk with you after we learn more about what you're doing. We're going to learn, okay, what options should you have, and then come up with a solution that works for your needs. Not everybody needs everything. Some places need more bells and whistles, others do not. Moving up from there, we've got a handful of different systems in play, 5 other models, and the largest one that's in play is going to be able to process about 4,000 pounds per
Wow.
batch of wet product. That being said, that doesn't always make the most sense. What we typically find is we'll group together handfuls of our 2,500 pound systems instead of going with that large 4,000 pound system, just with some of the logistic challenges that can come with a machine that requires specialized transport versus standardized, 10-foot wide trailers. So,
Well, and also when you're doing that much volume, you're typically doing like a one ingredient
that's
type of
right.
batch, right?
That's right. That's right. Now we do have options available on the systems. Like when we're looking at what we call our Parker 2, our 6, our 10, we can split that up so that you can process different things in different carts, and have different recipe profiles running in different carts as long as you have, no concerns about cross contaminations between the products, allergens, things like that. But when you're getting to an equipment scale like this, in that case, it's very likely you're running a pilot system for your process development, and then everything you're doing is 2,500 pounds at a time. You're not
Hmm.
really, when you get to that scale of equipment, there's a good chance that you're running, one SKU per batch, and you might be running that one SKU for a whole week, and then the next week you're switching to something else. From a co-packing standpoint, some of those companies that are out there, they need to be a little bit more nimble, a little bit more flexible. So in those cases, they might be running multiple different things, multiple different recipes. But for if you're running your own brand, running your own SKU, and you're staying vertical with all this, there's a good chance you're probably doing a single ingredient batch every time.
Yeah, what I've seen with some of your clients who I've interviewed or I've actually seen in person is they have either a summit um, or even like a home freeze dryer. They
Hmm.
kind of, especially with the summit being versatile to the larger machines, it's
Yeah.
like they use that summit to fine tune that recipe for a single ingredient or a single
Hmm.
recipe, and that it yes you have to make some tweaks, but it kind of translates well to the larger machine.
Hmm.
So when you're going to do a 2,500 pound batch or a 1,500 pound batch, you have that kind of expectation that everything should go in there that is.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly why we designed it that way, with a similar operating system or virtually the same operating system at the pilot level as you do at your full scale production level. And there are a bunch of groups out there that still perform their proof of concepts and their trial stuff, in a countertop system. Those systems have a place in the big picture still. It's just when you get to that certain point of how much you need to process, eventually you need to make that leap into
Yep.
the industrial quality stuff where folks like us live.
I was going to ask you another thing. So, like, this is different from the different scales of units, but like, what have you liked most about being in the freeze drying space? Because you've been in it for several years now. What keeps you loving the industry, uh, and what kind of like excites you about what keeps going on with it?
Yeah, I like paying my bills, so that's why I work. No, the industry is exciting, and this is one of those jobs that I'm in that every week I'm having a discussion with somebody about something different. There's a lot of variety, and even in if we specialize into channels, like, so I'm spending a lot more time in the pet space these days than I did in biotech and ag and all that sort of stuff. That is such a large umbrella. I mean, the pet
Mhm.
space is incredible as far as formulations go and types of products and ingredients. So there's really never a dull moment. Now, once that piece of it is done, then we've got the aspect of all of the networking taking place, of all the different places I'm going and all the people I'm meeting that are, when I'm doing these events at universities, I'm meeting the people that are going to drive this industry for the next generation, and I'm getting a chance to meet them early, so that's exciting. We can see that this is the right path to be on because this is going to be a thing for a while. Um, on a bit of a selfish note, I've been able to see some places that I probably had not ever been able to see in previous jobs that I've had. So it's really exciting to be able to come out and travel and to go to these places and talk about something I'm passionate about to people that actually want to hear about it.
Yeah, I think food overall for people like innovation in food is something that
Hmm.
you can be really creative about. And
Hmm.
and so do you feel like when you go to these universities, when you go to some of these places where you're meeting students, is freeze drying an actual like process that is being researched and investigated by kind of the up and coming generation because of this boom?
It really is. It really is. And because they're discovering how important it is to maximize the value of things, maximize the nutrition, maximize the flavor, maximize everything. And with the recent um, changes in the last year here, as far as how people are acquiring ingredients and really paying attention to what's going into the food, I think that's only going to stay stronger. Almost a bit of a renaissance of the natural ingredients and the way to do things with less chemicals involved and more preservation naturally. And freeze drying using such a low heat really bodes well for that. So it's going to continue to be interesting.
The more I've been in it, the more I like pay attention in all different grocery stores, and when I see, a a nice organic non-GMO type of granola with some fruit in it. I'm like, I wonder if those are freeze dried. But so maybe that's a good topic here, Matt. So like, there's obviously other ways to dry things.
Hmm.
So what is also have you seen outside of freeze drying, like when you see a dried fruit in granola, cereal, things like that, is most of that a freeze dried fruit that's in those things, or are there other ways that kind of get the same result that people are using?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a way to get the same result just because of its process being as gentle as it is. The other methods that you'll see out there of air drying, which still involves some heat, baking, traditional dehydration methods. There's a lot of different ways they can do it, but ultimately they all result in some sort of deterioration of either the nutrients, the visible qualities, the product itself, the shape, whatever. Heat just has a tendency to break things down. And I think that's what the unique thing is with the freeze dried process is that because that heat is so much lower to get the desired results because it's under vacuum, I think that's the real attraction to it. So there's some things you can tell when you look at it, like it has to be freeze dried. That's the only way because none of
Hmm.
the other methods will preserve it that way. Um, I think what formulators and people that are developing products need to decide is okay, how does this fit into the grand scheme of things? Does this cost too much to do it this way? Is it least expensive to do it that way? Am I maximizing my sourcing of products? If I freeze dry it, can I get, you know, powders out of things that I couldn't have used for elsewhere? Am I grinding it down and making it into a powder versus trying to keep it as a whole slice? There's a
Yeah.
lot of different ways that they're going about it. So, there's no real way to tell other than the marketing materials whether or not it is or not. And there's a value add that comes with saying something is freeze dried that kind of adds an inherent bump to how much it costs. And it's just kind of the way the consumers are being trained too. If it's freeze dried, it's probably going to cost a little bit more, but you're also getting, the more nutrients, the less processing of it.
Right. So would you say like is air drying, is that like a longer process? I've seen that, right, marketed on certain things, but like is it a longer process than freeze drying?
I think it depends on how they're going about it. In its purest traditional form, yeah, probably it takes longer because you're not really doing anything. But I don't know enough about air drying on a commercial scale to really say yes or no to that. That's something I've got to read up a little bit more on. We have been seeing it more and more in marketing materials from some larger manufacturers that, that's the route that they're opting to go. Traditional dehydration methods, you're probably going to be a little faster, but then again, that's because they're hitting it with a lot of heat and having air blowing over it while they're hitting, there's a convection of an effect going on in most of those pieces of equipment. So it does speed up the process, but at what cost?
Yeah. Yeah, I find, I mean, with at least with commercial machines like Parker, I mean, under 24-hour batches are pretty common
Yeah.
for most things. So that's pretty fast in and of itself. So
Yeah, yeah, and that's the case, and certain products and certain formulations will require some finesse. The biggest part of getting into a piece of equipment like this is the recipe development. And when I say recipe, I don't mean what are you putting in your food. For us, for our reference, we mean, the time and the temp. What are we controlling versus, the pressure levels in the chamber. So that's a key component of it. And, we continue to help our operators with that as often as we can. Ultimately, nobody knows their product better than them, but nobody knows our machine better than us. So between the two of us working together collaboratively, we can help get that stuff dialed in so that you're absolutely optimizing your runtimes. Now, that's another discussion on the scaling side of things. If you are a small outfit and you're running 8 to 10 hours a day as far as when you're physically there, it doesn't really matter if we get that batch down to 18 hours or 16 hours because you're only going to be there from start to close. when you get to the point of running multiple shifts, or you've got a part timer that can turn over the machine if that batch is done in the middle of the night, and you can turn that machine over, and now let's say you've shaved 2 hours of time off of that batch and found some efficiencies over a year's time, that's another batch a week, and that's 52 weeks in a year. That can exponentially change your balance sheet by having extra batches that you can find. But it's all relative to how big of an operation are we running here? How
Yeah.
often do I want to sleep at the facility?
Yep. Yeah, and you with all the people that you go and visit, I think that like the common question out there is, freeze dried candy had a big boom. I think most of the top brands that are selling that are still doing fine. But there's a lot of people that entered that, and there's a lot more competition.
Hmm.
But is in your opinion, are there all the companies that you're visiting? Are there people making a great company income and revenue in freeze drying?
Yeah, there's a lot of groups out there that are getting it done. It's just, getting over that hump to get to that scale. Um, as you've seen with a lot of the people you speak with and a lot of the people that call us as they're trying to figure this whole thing out, is, you know, okay, I know I've got a product here that I can sell out of. What's it going to take for me to make more of this so I can continue to meet this demand and sell it out? And that's where that whole, okay, we really need to understand, or not me, but the entrepreneur really needs to understand the true costs of everything so that they can figure out what it's going to take that next step and to
Yep.
be successful after that. That's the key thing. And it's not just, loading a single machine with a couple pounds. Let's say you add a bunch of those machines. Well, okay, but now you've got the added time and the energy and the space to be maintaining numerous machines as opposed to just turning one larger machine over once a day type of a
Yeah.
scenario. So there's a lot of different things that need to be taken into consideration, and then packaging that changes because now your batch sizes are much different. So now how are you going to handle this product when it's done? How fast do you need to handle it to maintain your product integrity? Is it something that's going to start to reabsorb moisture if you take too long to package it? Some products are real sensitive to that. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of different things that you got to consider.
Yeah. I would say food, the CPG and food industry, I mean, it's a really tough industry to be in.
Hmm.
But the reason I see a lot of people still getting into it is just like somebody opens up a new restaurant. Like part of it is just like you love food and you
Hmm.
want to do that as your business and you want to do that as your vocation versus clocking in and out at a company.
Yeah,
And so I see a lot of just tenacity and drive for people who are getting into this because they just are finding a love for the whole process part of it. The business side of it is a big question too, and that's what we're going to talk about at the summit with a lot of the different speakers. Is
yeah,
okay, what is it going to take for you to make $1 million in revenue for your company? $1 million may be a very expensive pathway for you, but also it might be a way for you to get to the level that you're paying yourself that salary and other people
yeah,
that you're looking for, but you need a machine to do that. There
yeah,
was a company, Matt, that I had in my freeze drying business that basically said like, "Hey, are you able to do like more scale of your freeze dried fruit?" And I said, well, yeah, I just had to buy more freeze dryers. And at the time, I had new kids coming along the way, and I just wasn't able to scale to be able to do what I wanted to do with my family. But one of the things that he said is, he's like, if you start actually wanting sales for the wholesale distribution market, and you really want to increase, you got to be ready to determine if you're going to accept that order for, let's say, 30,000 bags of your fruit.
hmm,
And it kind of made me realize, like, wow, like that'd be great to have 30,000 a purchase order for 30,000 units, but do I have machines? Do I have things that are going to help me get to that point? Because otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do it. And so that's where I think Parker and other commercial freeze drying companies help businesses is understand, like, if you have this machine, here's how many cycles it can do, here's the cost to do it, and then yes, when can you actually start accepting those orders?
Yeah, 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 and that's it's such an important part of the process, and obviously me being in the freeze dry business, I would love it if every single one of them decides to stay vertical and buys their own giant machine. But the reality of the situation is that's why there's a space in the market for co-packing and co-manufacturing. And it looks like, you've got at least one speaker, if not two, coming that are in that space that should be able to, help with that during the upcoming seminar as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Foodie Sean Jones from
yeah,
Foodynamics, now Glacier Freeze Dry.
yeah,
He's got several of your units on Parker, and he just, I think he just expanded a bunch with more units because he sees so much demand for it, that he's helping businesses who want to get into the pet food side of things get their recipe dialed in, and he's got a
mhm.
huge passion for it. So he's going to speak too.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to hearing him. I've met him quite a few times over the years, and because he's got our systems, and then seeing him at the trade shows and stuff, he's got a real strong team over there. So it's going to be exciting to get everybody together. I looked like there was Brian coming on some capital equipment side of things too. So it's going
Yep.
to be a lot of knowledge shared in a short amount of time. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. I wanted all the bases covered. So it's like, hey, we've got the OEMs that you can explore to see what machines and what type of partnership, who you want to partner with. But then I've
Hmm.
also got kind of the pieces like packaging. I've got a company who is seeing a huge influx of freeze dried clients, Severin, who's going to be talking, and they're going to be talking about what type of packaging they're seeing their clients get into. And then I've got the co-packing side of things covered. I've got the financing covered, where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, a Parker Summit for 80,000, it doesn't have to be that far out of reach.
Right.
You can find somebody who can get you financing, and that machine should be making you money based on your business plan. So we're going to
Yeah.
work through
Right.
those things too.
Yeah. It's going to be great. We're very excited. Happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, awesome. It kind of to wrap things up, Matt. Anything exciting that's kind of come along so far this year with Parker? Technology, software, new machines, people. What types of
Yeah.
things are coming out here?
So we've got some stuff coming down the pipe. Not everything is ready for prime time, but we're hoping to be able to talk about it when we get to the event here real soon. It's some stuff that's gonna make some people's lives a little easier and increase the value of the systems. So we're pretty excited.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, that'll be represented at the conference too. So we're looking forward to hearing that. And if you want to know more about Parker, I've got two videos in the video description of this stream. One is my interview with Matt actually at Parker in Beersford, South Dakota. And then I've also got a whole facility tour where he walked me through how the machines are made. You get to see everything, which is pretty great. And I'm thankful that I got to do that. I'll have to do it again here maybe in 2026 again, because I'm sure there's like just new things and new machines and things happening. So if you want to check those out, I've got all the video content you want. If not, check out Parker in the video description as well, and yeah, check out the Freeze Dried Summit and make sure you stay connected to the freeze dried business, because we'll be doing some live streams as well while we're there.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah. www.parkerfreezedry.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always willing to chat. Looking forward to connecting with everybody, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, David.